What's up, my neurodivergence? It's your boy. All right. so today, um, today I thought it would be fun to take the Myers-Briggs test, and figure out which one I am, even though I already know what type I am. And if it gives me another result, that's gonna be really suspicious. But I mean that would make sense though because this isn't actually the Myers-Briggs test. So fun fact: to take the real one, you have to pay money. You have to pay like $60 to take the real one. So I'm not gonna do that. And I also feel like this will be actually weirdly more productive because this is the one that like everyone takes. Like this is the version of it. So like you can see my results in comparison to that. Um, and yeah, so we're gonna check it out. I don't know why my Twitch always keeps saying connecting to chat. It never like never actually like has me do anything. But anyways, so we're gonna be taking this test, and I'm gonna kind of give my thoughts on the Myers-Briggs entirely because like I'm pretty knowledgeable about like the efficacy of using this as like a model. I wouldn't say I'm an expert by any means, but like I feel like I've done some research into it. Um, and so yeah, so let's just get started. This is gonna be a very me focused thing, but like if anyone has anything that they want to that um if they have any questions related to psychology or mental health, it says it right here. I want you to do that. Please ask me. Anyways, let's get this started. So first off, you regularly make new friends. I feel like I never make new friends. I feel like I find my people and then I just like never expand my range, but I'm more than willing to expand my range. I would like to. It's just that I typically don't have like the time generally, even though it sounds like a kind of weird excuse. Um but yeah, so I'm gonna put no, like medium disagree. Complex and novels idea excite you more than simple and straightforward ones. Um, I don't really know that like hmm that's a because it's an idea. So yeah, I would say so because I feel like I really like abstract things in general. But if it's like ways to proceed with like things that could be simple, I would say no, but I'm gonna say generally kinda yes. You usually feel more persuaded by what resonates emotionally with you than factual arguments. I feel like I'm very in the middle. Like I'm not very like facts don't care about your feelings because obviously I'm going to be a therapist and I think feelings matter a lot more than people who think that you can just shut them off and be totally logical. But I hmm that's a tough one because like I typically like things that are both like I like the intersection of like spirituality and science, but like I also value just spirituality on itself. So I'm gonna put like dead in the middle, honestly. Your living and working spaces are clean and organized. Generally, I would say so. Yeah. I they're not totally clean all the time, so I'm gonna put like small. Yeah. Usually stay calm even under a lot of pressure. I would say I stay extremely calm under a lot of pressure, actually, like compared to most people. Or like I'm very good at controlling. Like I can I can feel the intensity of the emotion, but like it doesn't like affect what I do in any like negative way. Like I still act very like true to myself and I'm able to like be aware of the emotion as it comes up. You find the idea of networking or promoting yourselves to strangers very daunting. Um, hmm. I'm gonna say neutral because like once again I hate this answer, but like it depends. Like it's one thing to like it's one thing to just go up to someone and say like, "Hey, like I like I'm really qualified for this and I do this and everything like that." Like if it's like a networking event, but like if it's just in general and I'm just like trying to get people to be like, "Hey, you should check out like my stream," or "Hey, like I should be your therapist one day," or whatever. Like that's never happened, but like if that were to happen, I feel like you know, that's something that could happen. So I'm just going to put that. You prioritize and plan tasks effectively, often completing them well before the deadline. Absolutely. I complete things the moment I get them. I hate having things weighing over my head. and I'm very efficient at completing them. People's stories and emotions speak louder to you than numbers and data. Absolutely, 100%. I mean, that's like what the entire profession is contingent on. I feel like people who are too reliant on numbers tend to make, like, I don't want to say bad therapists, but like I feel like people who like are like anyone who would be like, no, you don't feel this way because the numbers, like that's just like that doesn't sit right with me. Even though it's like very hyperbolic. Um, you like to use organizing tools like schedules and lists. Yeah, I have to. I have ADHD, so I need to have like a checklist, or because like I wouldn't be able to like keep track of anything. Um, Even a small mistake can cause you to doubt your overall abilities and knowledge. I would say yes, but like only a little bit, because like the thought comes up, which in a sense is a doubt. Like it causes me to doubt, but like I like appraise the validity of that doubt. Like I'm like, okay, is it worth it? Like, does it make sense that I'm questioning this much based on such a little thing happening? But I do definitely feel like the doubt come up in general. Um, you feel comfortable just walking up to someone you find interesting and striking up a conversation. Not really. I don't like to bother people. And I know a lot of people would perceive that as very like social anxiety and stuff, but like personally, like if anyone ever wants to talk to me, like that's fine and stuff, but like I'm not like, oh yay, someone came up and started a conversation with me. Like sometimes I kind of see it as a burden, if I'm being very truthful about that. I so like I gotta be honest, I don't think it's like a self-deprecation thing. I legitimately think people can just be bothered by people coming up to them, so I typically don't want to risk that. Especially because like I'm not gonna get too much out of most conversations that I just randomly start with people that have no basis. um you are not too interested in discussions about various interpretations of creative work. Absolutely not. I overanalyze media. I talk about so much stuff like that. Like it's no. I That's like all I live for is overanalyzing things. You prioritize facts over people's feelings when determining a course of action. I would say very dependent on the situation. I typically hate doing neutral, but like I have to consider the fact that like I need to consider the fact that like if it's survival, I'm gonna care about like anything not to do with survival. I probably would care about feelings more. Like anything to do with survival, I would care about facts more. Because like when it comes to making a decision, I don't care about like the statistics. Like because like you know, like if I was like no like you should get a job because like then you'll have like if you had enough money to get by but like you could be really successful, I'm not going to say go get a job because like factually you will have this, you will have more prestige, you will have more money. Like I think the person's opinion like matters way more in that, regardless of how illogical it seems to you as a person. You often allow the day to unfold without any schedule at all. Not really. No, I like I said, I have to keep a checklist on my phone or else I'm like totally lost. So you know, I kind of need to. You rarely worry about whether you make a first good impression on people you meet. Um, I would say I would say, yeah, I very rarely worry about that. Like I said, like the thought will creep into my head, but I'm very easy about like not letting thoughts linger. Like I very quickly am able to just determine like the 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 rationale of the thought and how valid it is. And if I need to make an adjustment, then I'm just like, okay, next time I'll make the adjustment. I don't like obsess over the thought. You enjoy participating in team-based activities. Um, uh, yeah, I like team-based activities. I think they're fun. I really like cheesy things that are like get to know each other things, or like we have to work as a team to do this game. So like I would say yes. You enjoy experimenting with new and untested approaches. Yeah, I would say small, because like it small agree because I once again, it depends. Like, I'm not a person to innovate if I'm working for like a corporation. Like, I'm not like, oh, maybe we could like flow test this and everything like that. I'm typically like an optimizer rather than an innovator. So I would say like just small agree, because like if something does come to mind, then like yeah. You prioritize being sensitive over being completely honest. Yeah, I would say so. So I think that like in spirituality, I kind of agree with this concept where it's like a lot of people in society are into like radical honesty. And so like I don't really vibe with that. Like I used to be a person that thought it was ethical to be like very radically honest, where it's like, you know, you see someone who's like of a heavier weight, and then you go up to them and say like, hey, you're fat. And then it's like, why would you say that? What purpose does that serve? And then you like literally just are like, oh well, you know, it's well, you know, like the reason I'm saying that is because like it's true, so I'm allowed to say it and I should say it. And I'm like, I don't vibe with that at all, because like I that goes against like the principle of spirituality, which is like nonviolence, because like they basically found out that like when you commit, and like I know this gets into all these things about like is hate speech violence, or is being like brutally honest violence and stuff like that. I'm not saying it's violence. I'm saying like the principle of nonviolence refers to speech as well. And so like when you have nonviolence, it essentially means that like if telling the truth would cause the person more harm than good, then you shouldn't say then you shouldn't say the truth. It like sounds bad, but I understand like karmically kind of how that leads to. I'm not saying other people need to have that belief. I've just noticed that when I tell the truth for and it doesn't have a really good reason and it hurts the other person, and when I lie when honesty could have helped the person, those two things equally like kind of build up like a karmic debt within me, and I end up like not liking that. So I would say that I overall kind of do that depending on the situation. I would say I lean more towards protecting feelings than I lean towards just being brutally honest for the sake of being brutally honest, just because I'm technically allowed to. Um, all right. So we're about 30% done. You actively seek out new experiences and knowledge areas of knowledge to explore. Yes, my brain is very hyperactive. I feel like I have a new hyperfixation every single week. But I also have stuff that's very steady that I do all the time. So it can go either way. You're very prone to worrying that things will take a turn for the worse. I would say that like I would say no, because like I say, like I'm always aware that things can take a turn for the worse, but I'm not like assuming ever that that is going to happen. Like I prepared for it, but I'm not worried about it. I just like logically consider like, okay, if things were to take a turn for the worse in this situation, what would I do about it? So I would say like small disagree. Um, you would enjoy solitary activities or activities more than in group solitary hobbies or activities more than group ones. I would say no. I feel like if I were to do group activities all day every day, I would never get bored. But if I did solitary activities every day, I would get pretty bored pretty fast. Even when I do things that are generally considered like alone time, like that's typically like functional. Like when I listen to like audiobooks and everything, it's not because I particularly like I'm like, oh hell yeah, an audiobook. Like it's just because like I want to get the knowledge that's in the book or whatever, and I think it would help me out in later stuff. So I would say pretty strongly disagree with that, like medium disagree. You cannot imagine yourself writing fictional stories for a living. Um, that's a tough one. I feel like no. I feel like I can imagine myself writing fictional stories for a living. Um, I wouldn't want to, but I can imagine myself doing it. So like I would say like small disagree. You favor efficacy in decisions even if it means disregarding some emotional aspects. No, I would say no. I once again, I think feelings are a factor like logic is. I think it's a very like western way of thinking to like assume that like facts are inherently more important than like personalized experiences, because like theoretically, if y'all want to be the most logical people on the planet, okay, let's all go work 80 hours a week because that's technically possible. And then we'll have the most efficient society ever. And guess how happy people will be. Yeah, countries that do that sort of thing aren't typically very happy. So I do think that like statistics are not an end all be all, and they need to be considered like pretty equally with emotions, because like if you just is that is that Heimendinger? What is? All right. Cool. I it's not showing up on there because I have it on my phone because like I don't know why, but Streamlabs is being weird with my chat loading. Um, but I can see it on this. That's cool. Good for you. There, um, but there's let's see. So I prefer to do chores before allowing myself to relax. Generally, yes, I would say pretty strongly. In disagreements, you prioritize proving your point over preserving the feelings of others. No, I used to be that way. I used to be very facts don't care about your feelings, and now I'm very like if it's not like if I can imagine myself winning and like an argument, I typically like don't feel good about it. Like I'm typically just like, okay, well now you're sad and your life isn't much better for having known this thing. So like let's just agree to disagree and move on from this. So, you know. Um you usually wait for others to introduce themselves first at social gatherings. Yeah, definitely. I rarely, if ever, do that. But I do it sometimes, I guess. But it depends. Like if it's like a family gathering, then maybe. But like I'm more comfortable now. Like a year ago, I would have put like big agree, but like now I'm like way better about like if I truly think that I can like make a connection with this person, then I'll go up and start a conversation with them. Um, I feel like my conversation ability has gotten way better. Your mood can change very quickly. Um, I would say I would say no. I don't think I'm a pretty stable person. I feel like I'm affected by emotions like yeah, like you are not very emotionally swayed by you're not easily swayed by emotional arguments. Yeah, I would agree with that. Uh you end up doing things at the last possible moment. No, definitely not. I absolutely it depends, but like I mostly 90% of the time no. Um you enjoy debating ethical dilemmas. Hell yeah. I love the trolley problem. Um you prefer to be around others rather than on your own. Yeah, I would say pretty strongly. Um you become bored or lose interest when the discussion gets highly theoretical. Hell no. I love debating like super vague stuff, which is like that makes my conversation style very polarizing because like I will always try and take something to like a super deep philosophical level, and if the other person like isn't on that wavelength, then they're just like, what the hell is this guy talking about? Please stop. um so yeah. When facts and feelings conflict, you usually find yourself following your heart. Um, yeah, I would say more so than often, and I feel like that's like the right play for me as a person. I know other people are in situations where like that's probably not the best move for them, but I feel like my life right now, I have the freedom to be able to like follow my heart and make mistakes, and like it's okay. You find it challenging to maintain a consistent work or study schedule? Absolutely not. I'm like I said, like I keep saying, like it's adaptive, but like I have to have a schedule or else I will never do anything ever. Even if it's self-imposed, I need to stick with it like it's not self-imposed. Um, so you rarely second guess the choices that you have made. Um, yeah, I would say so. I would say so. I rarely second guess it. Yeah, I am like I don't see the point in doing that. Like I think there's importance in reflecting on whether or not it was a good choice after you have all the information, but like I'm not a big believer in like half-assing decisions by like trying to like keep one foot in and one foot out. I'm just like if you're gonna fail, then just fail. But like you know, like fall upwards, as the saying goes. I think that people who are too afraid to whole ass failing are like are like the most stagnant people in life, and the people who like succeed in life are the people who are willing to fail 100%, not just like a fraction of the way. My friends would describe me as lively and outgoing. I would absolutely agree with that. I can't speak for my friends, but I feel like most of my friends would describe me as like incredibly energetic. You're drawn to various forms of creative expression, such as writing. Absolutely, 100%. Usually base your choices on on objective facts rather than emotional impressions. No, I small disagree for similar reasons as the ones before. Um, you like to have a to-do list for each day. Yes, I have ADHD. Millions of questions are like this. You rarely feel insecure. I would say this is a tough question because it really relates to like the nature of social anxiety. So like I have like a disproportionately high amount of thoughts that come into my head that I'm like being annoying compared to like other people. Like but like the way in which I deal with those thoughts, I feel like is healthier than most people. So even though the amount of times it comes into my head and then I have to like kind of figure out a way to get rid of it. That's bad phrasing, but I'm just trying to simplify. Like the way that I get rid of those thoughts and like let them kind of move on, it makes it so even though there's more initial thoughts, there's less thought loops. And so compared to most people, I believe. So I would say that overall, compared to like the overall human population, that I'm pretty like decently agree with that one. You avoid making phone calls. This one is hard because I love talking on Discord like all day, every day, but like I hate it when people call me and like it's for like a 2 second conversation that like didn't need to be over the phone. Like I just like don't like if it could be a text, I'm typically like I don't get and I value that the fact that like people can want phone calls because that's like a love language sort of thing for them. Like they typically enjoy the connection of that and they get stuff out of that. I just, as someone who gets literally nothing out of that, I see it as like a waste of time. So I'm happy to give that to people, but like in small bursts. So I would say that I'm like totally neutral on that because I'm two very big extremes. I can, depending on what type of phone call, I can be on it for hours and hours or not at all. You enjoy exploring unfamiliar ideas and viewpoints. Absolutely. That's like all I do. I like try and explore like why people think the way they do and what about their experiences could have led to that sort of thing. Is it okay? So we've got a question in chat, mental health wise. Good news is I won't need to bring out the whiteboard for this one because this is a very simple answer. Is it true that the key to happiness is a pack of Marlboro cigarettes? And it shows how much I do drugs that I don't think of that. That I don't know how to pronounce that. But I recognize it as a cigarette brand. And 13 beers a day. Um, I would say. I would say to each. My politically correct answer is to each their own. But my Dylan answer is absolutely not. Please get a therapist. All right, moving on. Uh, you can easily connect with people you have just met. I would say yes. So like this is weird because like I don't like to go up to talk to people at parties, but like if I if I find any common overlap, I would say that like I can get to like my profession is literally based in the art of talking to people. So I think that makes like that's like where I'm at with that. If your plans are interrupted, your top priority is to get back on track as soon as possible. Um, yeah, depends on what it means by plans. I know everyone says this sort of thing, and I'm really trying to avoid being like neutral route. But like I think that like if my plans are interrupted, my top priority, I would say so. I would say so. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I came up with an interpretation, and it gave me a non-neutral answer, so I'm gonna go with that one. If you are still bothered by mistakes you made a long time ago. I would say I used to be a lot. I used to be like staying up at night thinking of like an embarrassing thing I said. Um, like literally like 2 days ago, I was door dashing and I like went into like the wrong person's car. Like, and I just was fully sat in there and everything. And like they weren't there. They just had their car unlocked. And so like I feel like I'd be thinking about that for the next 20 years if like I wasn't the person that I am today. But like now I feel comfortable just like saying that and I'm just like, yeah, it's fine. Like I like that was embarrassing, but like it only lasted for like a second and now I'm like done and everything. And I'm just like, oh yeah, that was dumb of me. Like I shouldn't have done that. So I would say medium disagree. Uh, as long as yeah, I'm not still bothered by it. You are not too interested in discussing theories on what the world could look like in the future. No, I'm pretty interested in that sort of stuff. My emotions control me more than I control them. Absolutely not. Got that different person's car smell. When making decisions, you focus on how the affected people might feel as to what um feel than on what is most logical or efficient. Once again, I'm going to put totally neutral. If it's survival, then I'm probably going to be logical. If it's not, then like I'm like the goal of most things is for people to be happy. So I think that if you sacrifice happiness in the sake of efficiency, you're in essence being inefficient. like a lot of people think that like the way to be logical is to like steer entirely towards logic, but I think that that is like holistically inefficient because like the purpose of logic has an emotional endpoint. And so like if you sacrifice all emotions, it to me that's like oh hey, what's up? Thank you for following. I'm taking the Myers-Briggs test. Not really. This is unfortunately not the Myers-Briggs test. This is like, as to my knowledge, this is like a free version. To pay for the real version by like the actual company, you have to like pay like $60, and I'm not paying $60 for this, and I also don't want to like I'm interested in it from like a scientific standpoint, but what do you mean? Like just like video games in general? Because if it's like video games, then yes. Uh, but like I don't want to pay $60, and I don't know if I'm even allowed to stream it if I do take the real test. So I'm just taking the one that everyone takes. Um, but um, but yeah. So I'm just taking the personality test. I'm near the end, I think. But like, but yeah, like so. When people make decisions, I do not play COD. I do not play COD. I do not play I do not play sports games, and I do not play first person shooters typically. No, that's a lie. I sometimes play Overwatch too, which I know feels like it contradicts the idea of me being a therapist, but I do play Overwatch if my friends are playing it. But I never play it solo queue. Um but um but like if you ignore emotions if you ignore emotions to reach an end goal, typically most end goals that are not purely animalistic are like an instinctual, like have an emotional end goal. So to sacrifice for just the sake of that in a holistic sense is like illogical when you think about it. Because like it's like the mental health equivalent of like selling your car for gas money. So like that's what we've kind of done in like utilitarian sort of like economies and stuff like that, is that like we're like, oh okay, so the most logical thing is to delay gratification, and so we should like not and so we should sacrifice all happiness in the present so we can get it in the future. And then like it's just a perpetuating cycle of sacrificing I do not have an Instagram. I do not have an Instagram, unfortunately. If you got like a link to a channel or something, I'd be happy to check it out after I'm done with stream. Um, but there like when you're like because I love doing art and things like that. I'm just not very good at it yet, but I'm getting there. Um, but like a lot of places will like put what they'll be very like facts over feelings, and then like things just don't turn out very good, and like they're like, yeah, they're thriving, but like what was the point of thriving past the point of necessity if it's going to result in less happiness? Like that just doesn't make sense to me. So to me that's like illogical. Even though it seems like logic all logic is more logical than less logic, I actually disagree with that. I think that that's like a lazy sort of answer. um Well, I do have a Discord. My Discord is like maybe I can type it in chat. This is my Discord if you want to. I'm not sure if there's numbers attached to that. If there is numbers that you need, then I'm sorry, I cannot get those right now because streamer mode doesn't let me do that. So I'd have to wait until I'm after done with that. But yeah, so like if you so um so like you're so yeah, like that's why I think that like less logic is better sometimes for a logical answer, because I think that's a kind of a tunnel vision thing. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll have to accept that later. Um, your personal work style is closer to spontaneous bursts of energy than organized and consistent effort. See, this is so weird. Like questions like these are so weird to me because typically they're trying to gauge like, are you a spontaneous worker or are you like a focused worker? But like that's so hard for me because like my brain is very spontaneous, which is why I create structure. So like I have ADHD, and so my brain is hyperactive and can't focus, and so in order to do things that are necessary like schoolwork and like doing habits that need to be consistent, like working out and things like that, I need to set a schedule and stick to it. But like it like there's this metaphor that I really like from Dr. K that like his teacher taught him, that like you like in life, if you have like a very hyperactive mind, what you need to do is you need to juggle as many balls without dropping any of them. And like what I figured out is that like there are like glass balls in life, which are like the things that like if you break the consistency, then it's gonna fall on the ground and it's gonna break. But there are like plastic balls where like even if I commit to this just being a burst of energy sort of thing, then like it'll be fine, because it'll be fine even if I drop it, because like it was just meant to be purely enjoyable in that moment. So like an example of this is like working out is like a glass ball. So like if I give up consistency with working out and I only work out when I feel like it, then it's almost pointless of me to work out, because I'd be working out like once every month, because that's like typically when I'm motivated to work out. And so like so that's like a glass ball, but like something like playing a game, or like playing a specific game that I'm obsessed with at the moment, that's a plastic ball. So like I could drop that and not like, and nothing in my life would be like lost. Like that is purely meant to be like an enjoyment thing in that moment, and the lack of consistency does not diminish the value of my enjoyment in that moment. So this is like a really weird question to me. So like I would say my work style is no. I would say that generally it's not. Um when someone thinks highly of you, you wonder how long it will take them to feel disappointed in you. Um no, not really. I That's just not really something I relate to. Um like I just like what people will think of me, what they think of me. And like I don't try and like change that about people. Like there's a lot of people that don't like me. I don't think it makes me a bad person. There are a lot of people who like me. I don't think that makes me a good person. I just understand that like for every action there is an opposite and equal reaction, and so like people were just like based on their life experiences, they'll perceive what I do as either good or bad. I just try and do good things. So I don't really focus on like how people think of me in that sense. Um you would love a job that requires you to work alone most of the time. No, I think I would die, because I want to be a therapist, and that is inherently talking to people. I feel like if I was in a room alone the entire time, like meetings are my favorite part of like corporate jobs. So like a lot of people hate that. Like they hate meetings. It's their least favorite part. That's my favorite part, because like when I talk to people, time just flies instantly. Um you believe that pondering abstract philosophical questions is a waste of time? Absolutely disagree. Philosophy is like the way to happiness, in my opinion. Um, oh my god, epic rap battle of history. A reference. That was one of my favorite battles. We should watch epic rap battle of history, and like we should psychologically dissect why everything is the way that it is. Um, the philosophy of epic rap battles of history, if you will. Um, you feel more drawn to busy, bustling atmospheres rather than quiet, intimate places. No. Not really. I don't really like it when things are busy and bustling, if I'm being honest. Um, if a decision feels right to you, you often act on it without needing proof. Generally, yeah, I would say small agree. I feel like I need like a little bit of proof. Like if I have proof and I feel like it's right, then that like obviously I would do that. But like I feel like if there was something that I feel is right and I don't think it's going to work out logically, then like I'm going to do it anyways. Like streaming is a perfect example of that. Like I don't logically expect this to go anywhere. Like I think the odds of this going anywhere are extremely low, but like the beauty of it is that I I can still do it anyways, not expecting to like blow up or anything. And I can like still hope for that sort of outcome without like making my actions contingent on the likelihood of that happening. All right, we're almost there. 90%. You often feel overwhelmed. Absolutely disagree. I'm actually like an extremely calm person. Some people would say I'm too calm under pressure. You complete things methodically without skipping over any steps. I would say generally no. I feel like I, hmm, Yeah, I feel like I'm one to bounce around generally. You prefer tasks that require you to come up with creative solutions follow rather than follow concrete steps. I would say generally disagree. I typically like to be railroaded into specific things. Um You are likely to rely on emotional intuition rather than logical reasoning when making a choice. Once again, I feel like it's so in the middle. Like, I'm not like, oh, my emotions say this, so I absolutely think this. And I'm not like, oh, my logic says this, so I absolutely think this. Like, I think that that's like intellectually lazy. Like, I think that like you should consider all factors because like emotions and logic are both important. Because if I just act on logic, I'm gonna lead like an incredibly unhappy life. And generally, if you lead with just emotion, then like the emotions are more in control of you than you are of them. So like they should just be like factors. They should just be like a counsel in your head, but neither should like determine what you do. Um, because sometimes your emotions are going haywire and sometimes your logic is filled with cognitive biases. It really is always filled with cognitive bias, but like that's a conversation for a different day. You struggle with deadlines? Absolutely not. Like I'm so good with deadlines. Um, I'm gonna do male gender, and you feel confident that things will work out for you. Yeah, I think things will work out for me. All right, let's see my results. Yep, this is what I got last time. So, so good to know it's not inconsistent. Um, but there is a So let's kind of deep dive this for a second, and then I'll give you guys like my kind of view on like how good these sort of tests are. So I do like this sort of thing because at least it's consistent. I don't even think I gave the same answer for everything, but because the sentiment was the same for like the patterns, I'm glad that it was able to recognize that because I guarantee you I did not answer this many questions instinctually by like the exact same, considering it's so like by feel and unscientific. But like, so it says I possess like a unique blend of charisma, empathy, and idealism that sets you apart from any crowd. I do agree that like I typically am like a standout person in a crowd, whether you sees that as like positive or negative. I do want to make a positive impact around the world. I have an uncanny knack for understanding people's emotions and motivations and sensing what people need before they realize it themselves. Yes, that's literally like why I'm going to actually the anime protagonist like they're like the thing is that I feel like I feel like I've become better at that over time. And like I feel like that's like why I want to be a therapist because like that's often what people tell me is that like I will realize things for them before they even realize it themselves. And I feel like that's like I feel like I'm extremely good at reading people. Um and that can sometimes feel invalidating to people because sometimes my perception of them will be different than their current perception of them, and that doesn't mean that like they're wrong and I'm right or vice versa. It just means that like when there's a disconnect, like I have a very strong opinion when I like meet people and get an idea for who they are, and like I feel like if there's a disconnect it just means that like there's more conflict. It doesn't mean that like it's good or bad or anything. But like um I I can articulate visionary ideas with passion and conviction because I have a gift for communication and drawing others into your orbit and motivating them to join their cause. I have been told many times that like I'm able to get people to like get passionate about their ideas. Like many people just say that like they're inspired by my ability to um they're inspired by my ability to like have an infectious level of like motivation and passion to like achieve certain goals. So like that is very in line with like my perception of like how I tend to come off to people. So like personality traits, extroverted, I lean a little bit more towards extroverted than introverted. I agree. Like I don't think I don't feel bored being alone for a lot of it, but like I will get bored. Whereas like with extroversion, I typically never get bored when I'm like around people. I don't want to be like at a party 24/7, but like I generally like having company, regardless of if I'm doing an independent task or not. Like I typically like to be in parallel play mode, or I like to be doing something with other people. But regardless, people being around me is typically important. Intuitive, rather than observant. So I would say that like yeah, I like to look for the abstract. And that comes to like feeling too. Like I really like to I really like to understand life through experience. So like in spirituality, there's like two different types of knowledge. There's like no, there's transmissible knowledge and there's non-transmissible knowledge. In like American society, we kind of say like if you can't write down the explanation and it can apply instantly, then like it doesn't exist. But like that literally like is unscientific. Like that doesn't make sense because like when you think about it, like you can't like we can say on like an EEG that like if you point to a thought that if someone has a thought, we can say like, oh, this part lit up. But like that's not what a thought is. Like you can't say like what is a thought? Describe a thought to me. And you can't say like it's when a little like light lights up on this thing. And that's like the most scientific evidence we have of thoughts. The only other evidence we have of thoughts and from a scientific perspective is that like we have our own experiences. And like they believe in in Eastern cultures that like in like Eastern philosophies that like that just because I can't explain to you what a thought is, that because we experience it, it exists. And like I tend to agree with that persuasion a lot more than like if you can't explain it to me, then it doesn't exist, because some things are just beyond explanation. And so like if you believe that science is the end all be all for truth, then like not to hyperbolize or anything, but like you'd be more on the side of thoughts don't exist than thoughts exist. And personally, I'm of the persuasion that thoughts exist. And so like, because like things existed regardless of if we can measure them. Like even when we thought the earth was flat and we couldn't prove that the earth wasn't flat, like by that logic, the earth was flat until we discovered it. And so like, I think things exist and we just don't understand them yet. I think that's totally possible. So like judging, I'm organized and yeah. So like because my mind is based on like instinct, I need to live a very organized life. So this makes a lot of sense because generally I'm a spontaneous person, but like I used to live life by this sort of way where I just gave in to all my instincts and everything. And like, I just realized that everything turned out really bad. So like, I found I found a very healthy amount of structure versus spontaneity in my life. And I'm very happy with how it turned out. And assertive. So like, I'm self-assured, even-tempered, and resistant to stress, refusing to worry too much. I agree. I think that I'm not very like life kind of washes over me. It doesn't like sway me to different sides. Like I'm not very easily influenced by other people or events. Like I typically have a very steady path in life, regardless of my own emotions or other people's emotions. So, and I think that's like that's very easier said than done. Like it took me a long time to get to that point because like, how do you even know? But let's see. My empathetic nature is my greatest strength and potential Achilles heel. It allows me to form deep, authentic connections for others, but it also can leave you open to emotional exhaustion. So like, this is something that I actually disagree with. So like, empathy is not compassion. Like I feel like this is kind of drawing a comparison with like empathy and compassion, and like that's not like I'm actually a very unempathetic person. So like, and what that means is that like if someone else is sad, my likelihood to be sad as a result, like my ability to mirror their emotions instinctually is like less than other people. So like I actually have like a very independent emotional state regardless of what other people are like feeling. And so like that's what allows me to like be a therapist and like not, even though I'm not like a licensed therapist yet, like that's what allows me to like talk to people for long periods of times about emotions and like not get burnt out at all. I have a lot of like friends and peers in like my program that are actually very jealous of my ability to like not be empathetic to people. And like, once again, we have this perception in culture that like empathy means that you care, and not having empathy means that you don't care. Like that's why there's a difference between empathy and sympathy, because like I very logically understand that it's bad to feel like to feel bad, because like I know from my own experiences, obviously, and you can argue that that's empathy, like whatever, but I just mean that like I don't reflect other people's emotional states. So like I can want to help you because I want people to be happy, and I think that that's a right thing to do. But like if you're sad, it doesn't make me viscerally sad. Let's see. I worried over a criticism and left a good community. I am nowhere close to ignoring stress. Yeah, so like you'd probably fall under like turbulent, I would assume. I'm not super knowledgeable about this thing in general, but like I would assume that like you'd fall a lot more towards this. I used to be very much like that. Mejum, if that's how you pronounce your name, please correct me if I'm wrong. Like they're I used to be very much like very neurotic. I used to be a worrier. I used to like obsess over everything negative that people said about me ever. Like, and here's the thing, I wouldn't even obsess over negative things. I would obsess over neutral things that my mind turned into negative things. So like if this makes sense, like if someone like didn't reply to me, I would assume it's because of me in some way. It's a very narcissistic way to go about life. Like, and I don't mean that in, like, because we think, once again, we think of empathy as compassion. It's not. We also think of narcissism as positive ego, as in like you think very highly of yourself. Narcissism is just how much you focus on yourself in the grand scheme of things. Like how much do you like have how much of your life is looking in a mirror, essentially, like mentally or or literally looking in a mirror. So like I so like I realized that like so much of my life was me assuming that I was the center of everyone else's life. And like weirdly, a lot of benefit came from like the very double-edged sword of like assuming that people don't really give a shit about you. And like that for people in a very mentally unhealthy state is going to be like, I already think that people don't give a shit about me. And I'm like, no, you kind of do sometimes, because like you think that when people respond a certain way, it's because of your influence on it, which means that you assume that your actions have an extremely high influence on other people, which inherently is like kind of a narcissistic way to think about things. Whereas like if you just look at the reality of what's happening and what they say, like someone can be mad at something that I do and my brain would narcissistically be like, that has to do with who I am as a person. But now I can be like, oh, it doesn't matter if I made a mistake or not. I can be like, okay, they're mad at the thing that I did, but that thing is not me just because it came from me. Like it's a product of who I am as a person, but like the thing and me are fundamentally different things. Like if that thing didn't happen, I'd still be me. So like the ability to just separate that out is like so important. Um but anyways, a little tangent, because I think that that's like important to highlight. I'm not saying that like you're a bad person because like you're focused on yourself. Like I'm saying that like I went through that, and like there's many steps to getting better at that. But like I used to inherently be the type of person that you kind of are now. And like I don't think it's an inherent quality of being like a person. Like I think you can learn to separate that stuff. That's kind of why I believe in a lot of spirituality stuff. Um so so that's why I kind of disagree with this. Like I don't really agree that like I'm exhausted. I know it says like potentially, but but I don't really agree that like I feel like that's I don't feel like that's accurate. Um you find yourself taking on other problems as your own, sometimes at the expense of your own well-being. I find myself like sometimes doing this, but like I realize that like it's more of a dharmic thing, rather than like an emotional thing. Like it's like my duty to help people, so I notice like a compulsion to help people out whenever I can. Um career path, I'm very curious about this and stuff. Like, so I need to make meaningful differences in people's life. I absolutely agree. I feel like the most I get burnt out is when I can't actively see that like I'm helping people, or I can't like logically know that I'm like helping people to like a more important degree than just like a simple convenience. um so uh yeah, like I can influence people really easily. I agree with that. I think I'm very influential on people. Now we can get to like strengths, and I'm not getting access to that. I'm not doing that. So charismatic. So I have charismatic leadership, empathetic communication, strategic vision, and people oriented. So I once again, I think empathy is like a very specific thing, and I think that like I think that it underestimates how much of my compassion is logical, and it assumes that like I am very compassionate because like I want to feel happy because they're happy. And like I will be more happy if someone's happy, but I won't be more sad if they're sad. Like I will just understand that that's a thing that's happening, but that also comes with like acceptance, like as a spiritual concept. Um so next one, we got your weaknesses, putting others first. I absolutely put others above myself to a degree, but I actually think that this is going to sound defensive, but I actually think that I have like a very healthy hierarchy of like and like thought process of like when I'm gonna help someone versus when I like kind of keep to myself. Sensitivity to criticism. I have been prone to be very sensitive to criticism, but I'm actually very good at taking criticism. Once again, it comes back to like the potency of the thought versus how quickly it goes away. I think that the potency of the thought when it enters my brain, like as insecurity comes in my brain, it's very strong. But I feel like I'm actually very good at handling it once it's in there. So I kind of agree with that. Overly idealistic. High standards might clash with practical limitations in the workplace. So like, I kind of agree with this. Like, I am someone who strives to meet higher standards than like I'm someone who like is an optimist in the sense that like I try to do things uh I try to create chances that even if chances are like very low, I try and do things that seem kind of pointless to other people. Like once again, this comes back to like me streaming right now. Like I don't think I'm going to get a million viewers doing this sort of thing, but like for all I know, there is a community out there that can really benefit from us talking as like a community about like mental health stuff. And like and the chance that that could happen is a good enough reason for me to do it. So like even if this like totally fails and like I'm like not streaming anymore in like a month, then like it will still have been worth it for me to take that chance. So I would argue that like some people would consider that like overly idealistic. Um but I mean, I don't think that I'm not like if someone pushes back against my overall idealism, like I think that I generally yeah, I do kind of push back because like I kind of dig into like okay, like why are you so logic driven? Why are you so afraid of failure? And I feel like my intense ability to tolerate failure rubs people the wrong way because me being willing to take risks and have them fail can come off as like naive or even negligent to some people. So I would argue that like at least from like an outside perspective that definitely is like how I would come off in like a business setting. And taking on too much, I kind of agree with this. Like I wouldn't say it's too much because once again I think that like I think that I like take on as much as I want to, but like I literally said to my girlfriend yesterday as we were on a walk, I literally said like, man, from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed, I've been like doing stuff and it was all like different stuff every hour. And so I do definitely think that like, but like I think that that's just like my style of pursuing life is that like it's once again the thing about like when you're comfortable sitting still, you'll be able to move so much easier. I had an epiphany where I was like, I could sit still for the rest of my life and I'd be at peace. And then that is weirdly when it was the most easy to move because like then life basically turned on creative mode instead of survival mode. And now I feel comfortable doing things that aren't very effective, like doing this. And like it's fun. I won't consider this a waste of time if it doesn't work out. So, you know. Um, let's see here. Personal growth. Insatiable desire for self-improvement and genuine commitment to becoming the best version of yourself. I agree with that. I think that I'm always trying to self-improve, but like I feel like a lot of people use self-improvement as like a way to like fill a void in them, and like I think that I used to do that a lot and I feel like I don't do that anymore. um your high standards of my own behavior makes me my harshest critic. Um, I kind of agree with that. I'm not sure if I totally agree with that. Like, I think that like I think that I guess relatively, yeah, I am my harshest critic because no one else is thinking as much about my actions as me. But it's like not it's not like a self-deprecating way like it might come off. Me and the homies leaving creative mode after invading Area 51. Like that's what I mean. Like it's just I feel like most people's lives and their mental health being bad is because they're living it like a survival horror. And I feel like when you become a very spiritual person, things become really easy. Because like you learn how to turn on creative mode, and then life becomes a video game. And then and then people will look at people like me, and then they will just say that I'm inherently talented at things, and I just don't think that that's true because like I used to be like a total loser. Like I used to be like absolutely pathetic by like every measure, and like I don't mean that even like in a negative way. I just mean that like that was purely like the state of my life. Like most people when they think of a loser, like that was me. And so like anyways, like I think that like I while this drive can lead to remarkable personal development, it is crucial to temper it with self-compassion and realistic expectations. So like I agree with like I have so like yeah, I agree with both because like I have a lot of self-compassion. That's like the crux of like why I feel like this is like accurate. And like I think that realistic expectations like that's the thing is that I don't expect certain things. Like I go into things knowing their probability, but I don't expect a specific outcome. So like if this takes off and like streaming magically becomes a huge thing, I'm not going to be like I'm not going to be like surprised, and I'm not going to be like that was expected. I'm going into this knowing that there's a percentage chance of something, and I'm like, okay, I don't even know what the percentage chance is, but I'm just going to try it and like do it independently of the likelihood of success, which is a very hard thing to understand for most people because that sounds like it's like being inefficient, and what kind of inefficiency that means you're wasting time, and if you're wasting time then you don't do anything. But you'll notice a very subtle difference. I do things and a lot of other people don't. uh that's one of the most egotistical things I'll probably say. But like I've just noticed that when people the most efficient people in the world I've noticed are never do anything. And then the people who let go of efficiency actually do things. And I feel like weirdly a lot of overly efficient people will agree with me on that one because you like you're like, why didn't you do this thing? And it's like, oh, because I wouldn't have been able to like do that much with it and everything like that. Like I wouldn't have been, like I would have only gotten this much done. Is it really worth it to start a task if I'm only going to get 1% done? And like once you realize that the answer is yes, like you just start doing it. Like if I can only watch a video for 20 seconds, I'll watch a video for 20 seconds if I think it's a good move. Um, that obviously is a very slippery slope into like toxic productivity. But like once again, these are like very multifaceted concepts. I can't like explain how to be mentally healthy in like one sentence. Maybe I could. Who knows? Maybe there's like some guru thing that I could say to everyone. But I feel like if that existed, then it would be said. Like I feel like someone would have figured it out and just said it to everyone. And then I'd be out of a job. Let's see here. Care for self-care. Your natural inclination to put others' needs before you can lead to burnout if left unchecked. Once again, I think I'm good. Like I agree that it can be like my personality type is prone to doing that sort of thing, but I feel like I'm actually really good at like controlling that. So like I agree that like other people would be inclined to do that. So my strengths, striving for growth, emotional intelligence, inspiring, adaptable. I agree with all of those. High standards, I don't really agree. Like I think that like I'm not like a very toxically productive person. Like I said, like it sounds like too good to be true, and like I'm being like super defensive about this whole thing, but like legitimately like this like it's like yeah, you can get really stressed and everything, and I'm just like I'm just not stressed. Like I don't know how to tell people like I'm just very productive and I'm not stressed. And if I wasn't productive, I would also not be stressed. Like I could like go sit on a rock for like an hour today and I'd feel like totally at peace. Like and I wouldn't be like, oh no, I gotta do this thing and I gotta do this thing. Like I'm just like, I just choose to stream because like I'm like, okay, cool, I want to. Like, so neglecting self-care, I feel like that's like when my line gets drawn most of the time. Like I feel like I'm okay making self-sacrifices for the sake of other people, but like it's not like a compulsive thing. Like there have been times where like someone needs my help and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna like focus on myself for a moment. But generally I do put other people above myself. It's only when it gets to like it says, like neglecting it. Like I don't want to like ever, like I think that I deserve kindness, self-kindness as much as other people deserve their own kindness, but I don't see it in like the toxic Twitter way. That's kind of like, I don't know anyone anything. Like if you need anything from me, like I'm too busy on the grind and I'm just like, okay, like I I don't know how to respond to that. Like that's like not a healthy way to live. I don't think that's like very like I get drawing a line, but like it's so hyperbolic that I can't agree with that. Overextending yourself. Most people in my situation would consider it overextending myself, but like I don't feel stressed, so like it doesn't feel like overextending myself because like I follow through on like all my commitments, and so I feel like the way I'm handling life is like very healthy. I don't like make commitments I can't follow. Like I always carve out a time in my day to be like the free time where I can do like whatever. Um and then self-critical. I feel like I'm very self-critical in the sense that like I'm always perpetually like self-analyzing. So like I'm very always deep in my own mind and thinking about why I think the way that I do. So in that way I kind of agree. In relationships, I'm deeply committed and intuitive partner. I cater to others' emotions and makes gift for creating deep, meaningful connections that foster when others feel to be their authentic self. Once again, that's like something that I totally agree with. Like I feel like whenever I feel like the way I interact with people gets them to be more authentic. Because I feel like authenticity is often really hard for people to do. Um, I feel like particularly in men, it's very hard to be authentic because like oftentimes like men are taught that like authenticity is just like lame or it's like or it shows weakness and stuff like that. And I know it's very like water is wet. Everyone talks about that and everything. But like I actually don't think it's very hard to get like very closed off men to like be honest with you. Like I actually think that like if there's a part of them, because I went through this before, like I think there's a part of them that like if you're authentic, then like and they might make fun of you for being authentic, and then like if you just can tolerate that and then continue to be authentic despite that, be like then they can feel like slow. It might take a couple like tries, but like if you relentlessly don't give in to like this sort of like the sort of insincerity that like the like a lot of men push, then like you will get them to be authentic because just plain and simple being authentic just feels better. So like yeah. Um and I don't mean authentic in like the radical honesty sort of way where it's just like, you know, if you think something you should just automatically say it. Like I mean more so in the sense of like it's important to that like people will just be more real with you. Like they'll be more comfortable expressing genuine emotion rather than like blanket emotions, and they're willing to like be articulate with their thought process without like being told that they're like the glasses emoji with like the actually I think this is the state of the like you know because like being serious is a crime for a lot of like men groups, so like that's important to acknowledge. um my strengths: understanding others' feelings, yup; loyalty, yup; inspiring, yup; resolving conflicts, yeah, I feel like I'm good at that. Idealizing others, I do note it once again, there's a lot of things that I've overcome, but like I completely understand this thing because like a year ago, this still would have probably all applied to me, and it would have been like the unhealthy version, arguably. Not a year ago, like 2 years ago. So like I feel like I am naturally inclined to like think of others as like, oh, if only I were them, I'd be happy. And like now, only recently have I like been happy with myself in like the past like year and a half. Um, Weak personal boundaries. Um, I would say do so a lot of people see me as the therapy friend, and I'm more than happy to help them as the therapy friend. And like, I feel like I actually feel like most people who I talk to are like very good at like continuously telling me like, hey, if I'm like taking advantage of the fact that like you know a lot about this stuff, then like let me know. And so like I actually feel like a lot of my personal boundaries are like really good. They're definitely way more loose than other people. Like I'm way more therapy than a lot of people would be with friends. Like I don't give them therapy or anything, but like I'm way more of a therapy friend than a lot of people would say is like their healthy limit. But like I don't have a problem with it. Like I'm more than happy to help people out. Avoiding conflict, I do avoid conflict. Like I feel like I'm very avoidant of any sort of I'm very avoidant of like because then I am that's like one of the biggest things that I will admit is like something that I do struggle with, is that like I don't like it when other people are like getting really tense, and I still feel like a visceral uncomfortableness with it, and I like don't like addressing it. Like I've learned to like acknowledge that and still address it and do what's right for the moment, but like I noticed that that's like one of my most visceral emotions is when people are arguing. I feel really uncomfortable. And then taking on other people's burdens, I feel like I don't empathize in the sense that like I don't take their emotional weight, but I do feel like a very strong compulsion to help people when I'm able to help people. But like I said, I think that that's generally dharmic. Um, Other protagonist, Barack. Yes, Barack Obama, my boy. Let me be clear. I'm a protagonist. I'm kind of the Aaron Yeager of my story, if you can believe it. I don't know who John Cusack. I feel like I've heard that name. Oprah Winfrey. Okay. Ben Affleck, Batman. Oh my goodness. Malala. Oh my god, they talked about Malala relentlessly when I was in high school. So that's like why I know who she is. Why does it say why under her name? Okay. Jennifer Lawrence, man, Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lawrence surrounding Malala of all people is kind of crazy when you think about it. Um, Not saying that they're not like they're lesser people. I just think that like it's crazy. I love how we get from like real people and then we go into like, like that it's like Daenerys Targaryen, Morpheus, like people like that. That's so funny. Um and then we got I don't know who a lot of people I know who Sean Connery is. Skylar White from Breaking Bad. Haven't seen a lot of Breaking Bad. Um and then Bones. Oh my goodness, I hate that show. Um, and just a bunch of comments. Okay, so cool. So now I can kind of go into like my general thoughts about this. So like I think that when it comes to like a work culture sort of thing, that like the Myers-Briggs test, like the actual Myers-Briggs tests, can be like a very helpful tool based on the statistics, like dividing people up into groups based on this, or using it as a way to scientifically pair people off in like effective ways. That has been shown to be like pretty effective decently. It's admittedly a little bit understudied for how big of a thing it is, because most of the research from Myers-Briggs comes from like an organization that is like part of the Myers-Briggs organization. So like it's hard to like judge it because there haven't been many like independent studies of it. Um at least to my knowledge. That's just like what I know about it. And so that's kind of hard to determine. The reason that I'm apprehensive about this sort of test, so like I don't know the consistency of the main Myers-Briggs test, but if it's anything like the 16 personalities test, then like I'm a little skeptical about its efficacy, because I think there is value in knowing the traits of your current personality in this moment, but as someone who has taken this test throughout the years, I basically get a new thing every single time, and there is rarely a time in my life where two different results overlap with one another. And so like what I mean by that is like I have had probably like 8 of the 16 types at this point, because that is how much I just fundamentally change as a person. And I think that every time I'm very true to myself. So like I think that there's a lot of value in knowing who you are at this exact moment, but like this isn't much like things like Ayurveda, which is like a lot harder to change and more gradual. Bless you. Like there's a lot more like difficult to change based on that. And like what I've noticed in the Myers-Briggs test is that it is so volatile and changes so often that it basically becomes obsolete the moment you do like the day after you do it, you could be a new person. Because like there's so much in life that is a chance to sway us to one side or the other of each of these letters that like it's just so hard to like look at that sort of model and say like yeah, you should like base a lot of stuff on it. But I think it has generally helpful insight to a lot of different things. Um and like apologies if this actually is the Myers-Briggs test. I don't know why there's like a paid one by like the Myers-Briggs organization then. And so like but I assume that this is like a general kind of like it's generally comparable. Um but if this is the Myers-Briggs test, then like, I just assume that it is, just assume that like I'm drawing a thin line between it. Um because I assume it's not too different. But we do have to treat it as different until we know whether this is actually that. I just have no idea how to find out if that's like the thing or not. But basically, I think that like a lot of this is accurate. I think that a lot of the language used in both the in a lot of the things used in both the questions and the results are very vaguely phrased, like the empathy thing, which can be understanding your personality in a very like vague or even prone to misunderstanding sort of way is, I don't want to say dangerous, but like at that point like you have to make sure you're doing it right, because like then what's the point of learning about it? Because like the value is what you put into it. So if you think that it has a lot of value, then it's very important that like you really dive deep into like the meaning of these things and how much that actually tracks with you, and not just assume. Because like if I had less of a sense of self, I would, and I didn't introspect as much as I do, I would see these weaknesses and I would immediately be like, yes, those are me. Because like I would vaguely apply them to things I maybe felt. But like as I've been showing you guys, like you have to think of like the nuances of these things, and in order to like you need to have like a good sense of personal self in order to then relate this to that. You can't have like a void in yourself that doesn't understand yourself and then use this to fill that void, because its model is so rigid that it won't apply to you, that it can't possibly apply to every person's experience of existence. Like it just, like, in my opinion, can't. So I think that's just very important to acknowledge. Um and so that's kind of my overall breakdown of this sort of test. I feel like I resonate with a lot of it, but I very strongly don't resonate with a lot of it, because I feel like it kind of breaks down once you kind of get into higher states of consciousness, which sounds so unbelievably cult-like and also maybe arguably egotistical. But like when you start meditating and when you start introspecting, I feel like a lot of these concepts break down, because a lot of these, like, in my opinion, by the way it's worded, kind of sounds like they're implying that like emotions and logic are like opposed things, and like things that like, and that like it's hard for me to answer this as someone who is able to separate thoughts from like my consciousness. Like once you're aware that your thoughts are thoughts, you struggle to understand whether or not, like, how you should answer this on the test, because like once you understand that the thoughts aren't you and you can observe them in isolation without just thinking that they are holistically negative or holistically positive, you can just understand why your mind has certain thoughts. It becomes very difficult to be like, you have thoughts of this thing. It's like, okay, yes, but I don't think about it all the time. Like I'm able to moderate the thoughts. So I think this test becomes weirdly more difficult. I feel like it's almost like a bell curve of difficulty. Like people who understand themselves very, very well will notice flaws in the way that it's presented, and they will struggle to answer they will struggle to answer it effectively because of that. And then people who don't understand themselves a lot, maybe people who have like emotional color blindness, like they have like alexithymia or something, they will struggle to know their internal processes on a deeper level and won't be able to answer it. I feel like the most effective people to answer this sort of test are people who like very casually are into psychology but not very deep into like spiritual concepts and stuff, or people who simply are just very emotionally like enlightened or spiritually enlightened, and then they also are um and then they also just are better than me at understanding like the wording of these things, because I could just be totally wrong about it. That's just my honest like that's what I understand about this sort of stuff. um but overall, I think it's extremely fun to do with your friends. I think it's fun to compare, and I think it's like a good business thing. At least that's what the statistics show me, even though it's a little bit understudied. Um, but but yeah, no, I like doing it, and I like doing tests like these. In a future stream, I might do a like the big five personality test, because I think that's a little bit more scientifically valid. I hate saying words like that because it makes it seem like I'm being like that's just my perception. I could be totally wrong about like literally all of this stuff. But there but like that one I like a little bit more. Even though I think that also has problems from what I've experienced with it. But once again, I could just not be taking the real version. I got to do more research into that sort of stuff. Um, but yeah, so I'm good for now. I don't I I've got a lot of other stream ideas, but if y'all have any stream ideas like this sort of thing where like I take a test and then like I give you guys like the lowdown on how effective I think this test is and everything, obviously there's very limited space for that. Or if you guys want me to play a specific game, or you guys want me to like live react to something or watch something in private and then dissect it here and stuff, or you just have a question based on psychology, or you even want to come on the stream, please let me know. I'm open to like any and all guests. So yeah, just let me know. And yeah, thanks for coming by, everyone. I'll just ask your questions or suggest your things, and I'll see you later.